will you tell the Muppet story of your audition? Kind of switching gears here.
Oh boy, yes. So I got hired by Tony Urbano to go do a Chicken McNugget commercial in New York. Now, back in the day, they were little foam critters that you sculpted with scissors. See, I thought I was just doing something to get into the industry. And the next thing you know, the industry is doing what I do. So I was like, how nice.
Yeah.
that this happened. So you would take scissors and you would carve these little McNuggets about this big. And then it had a little mechanism that their little bodies would squeeze down and they would go like this and dance. And you would work them with a rod on, or whatever. They'd sit on Ronald McDonald's shoulder, or they'd sit on a piano or whatever. And for some reason, we had to go to New York to shoot this. So we're in New York and we finish our day. It's like 3 puppeteers, Tim Blaney, who's another person you might want to interview. He's brilliant. And Tony Urbano and myself and another lady from New York who came and worked with us. But at the end of the day, Tony Urbano said, who wants to go to the opera? And I went, opera? And when I looked around, everyone was gone except for me and Tony.
Oh, man.
And I was like, and Tony says, Terry, you'll love it. We're going to go to the Met. We're going to get dressed up and we're going to listen to do opera. And I thought, opera. And I said, is it in English? And he says, no, it's not in English. It's in Italian. Or it's in, and I'm like, oh no, I'm just like, what am I, 20 years old, 21 years old? And I'm thinking opera. Oh gosh. No. And he says, please. So, okay, okay, let's see how much the tickets are. So we go to the Met and the only seats are box seats, which means 4 seats in a box, like you saw if you've ever seen Phantom of the Opera or anyone with glasses of importance. That's where they sit, in a box. And it was like $80 a person. And I'm like, Tony, it's $80. I'm like, how far $80 is going to go for me if I don't go? And he said, oh, please, I've always wanted to see opera at the Met. Oh, please. And I said, okay, what's in it for me? And he said, what do you want? And I said, I want to go see Ha, which was Henson's studio in New York. I said, I want to go see Ha. And he goes, well, you're not going to meet Jim. You want to meet Jim? You're not going to meet Jim. And I was like, actually, no, I don't want to meet Jim Henson. It would be nice to meet Jim Henson, but that's not why I want to go. I want to go. And you, Landon, will understand this. I could not figure out how they made Miss Piggy.
Yes.
I could not figure out how they made Bunsen Honeydew. I wanted to know, how are they doing it? It wasn't Muppet fleece. I knew it wasn't fleece. I knew Kermit was fleece, a fabric, but they are not fabric. And I'm going, I want to see what are they made of? And he goes, okay, deal. We shook on it. I went to the opera. Most of the time I was trying to figure a way not to fall asleep because there's only 4 people in a box and they're all watching you. But I managed. And then we went to Ha. And while we were there, we went upstairs and the first person to come around and say hello was Jim Henson. Jim Henson took one look at me and went, now, it wasn't because I was so strikingly attractive, and it wasn't because I was this magnificent puppeteer. He had no idea. It was because I was a lady puppeteer. And he knew right away that Tony was a #1 puppeteer on the West Coast. And if I was standing next to Tony Urbano, I must be pretty doggone good. So he automatically walked up, reached out his hand and said, I'm Jim Henson. How are you? And I was like, whoa,
Oh my gosh.
And he started to ask me all these questions. And Tony got a little upset and said, she's me. And I said, no, I'm not. I haven't worked with you in a while. I'm a work for hire. So please don't say that. And so Jim was the one who took me down and taught me about Miss Piggy and how she was made, and Bunsen Honeydew, how he was made, which many of you may have seen some of the behind the scenes, but it's a foam sculpted character. And then they use a thing called flocking, which is putting glue on the foam and then using electromagnetic currents to make little hairs stand on the end and just coat it. They use it in animals for the detailed part in their fur and stuff. And it was fascinating. I was like, oh. That's amazing. That's amazing. So we
Yeah.
toured the studio, and then I left. And when I left, a door opened and an arm came out, like if you watch the Addams Family thing, an arm came out and put something in my pocket and disappeared. And I was like, what the? And then I went home and I opened it up, and it was a note, and it said, Jim Henson would like you to audition. And I looked at that. I'm now in LA. Jim Henson wants you to audition. And I was like, that's nice, but okay, whatever. And I put the note down, and then Jim called me, and I thought it was someone punking me. So I said, this isn't Jim Henson. And he goes, yes, it is. And he said, I want to know why you haven't called me back. I gave you this note, And I said, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Henson. I wasn't quite sure it was real. And he was like, why wouldn't it be real? And so he said, I want you to come back to New York and work on Sesame Street. And I said, no, thank you. Now, that's the thing that's a shocker to a lot of people. They said, Terri said, no, thank you. Yeah, I said, no, thank you. I don't want to go to New York. Please, no.
Did he know you as a puppet builder or as a performer?
He knew as a performer. He didn't know I was a builder until I told him I wanted to be I was a builder. I built my own. Because Landon, and anyone who builds, the only way for your puppet to work best for you is to build it yourself. You can have someone else build it for you. It's a whole different feeling. Out here in California, the problem is that a lot of shops would build it the way they build other props, and they're always way too heavy. One of my favorite stories is Doc Ock of Spider-Man 3, where the arms of that actor were so heavy, many puppeteers were injured to make those arms work. They were physically hurt. So I said, so I'm like, doesn't have to weigh a ton to be performed. But, I wasn't about to do a movie like that where I'm going to damage my body. So you have to kind of think it would have been cool to work on Spider-Man, but not if I'm in traction for 3 weeks or 3 months. So these are the kind of things as a puppeteer when other people are building and you're not quite sure how they're, you got to just know that if they confer with you, you're probably pretty safe. But Jim Henson puppets were all light and fun, all foam, all beautiful, all great. But I didn't want to be in New York because I could not come down from New York. New York was too loud, too much noise, not enough quiet for me. So I told him if he ever came out to California, I wanted to work with him. And he goes, well, what makes you think I'll work with anybody that's not in New York? And I said, Dave Gold, who plays Gonzo, lives Northern California. And I said, Steve Whitmire, Rizzo Rat, is in Baltimore, and then or Atlanta, and then Kevin Clash was Baltimore. And he goes, oh, you've done your homework. And I said, yes, I have. So he said, okay, and he hung up the phone. And then in 1989, he came out to California, and he called me again, and he said, all right, sister, here's the deal. I'm coming to California. I'm going to do Muppet 3D Vision with Disney, and you're going to audition for me. And if you're not good, I'm going to make it hell for you at that audition. Got it? And I was like,
no pressure.
Okay. Bring it on, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of, I'm young and I'm like, yeah, you bring that, whatever. So the day comes to do the audition. And like I told you, many puppeteers in California were really angry because we walked into the Debbie Reynolds dance studio and they said to us, and you walk into a room and everybody is practicing. So in one corner, they've got cameras set up and people are in front of camera with their character. And then the mirror, some are in front of the mirror and they're doing their characters. And so the lady says, hello, Terri, I've got your name down on the list. Here's a group of puppets from the Henson Company. Pick one, and then you're welcome to practice in front of the mirror. You're welcome to practice in front of a camera. You can practice all you want. Well, one of the things that Tony Urbano taught me, and Tony was a really good mentor, but one of the things Tony taught me was the people performing in front of the mirrors and in front of the cameras are not your competition. Not in puppets. The person who's sitting reading the paper, that's the one you got to watch out for.
Oh,
So
right.
I curled up and read the paper or just found one that fit well.
Mhm.
Because again, I build, so I know what I want in feel.
Sure.
And then I sat down and put the puppet in my lap and said, I'm going to just call the gods of improv to me. And I'm not going to show people what I'm doing. And so we went into auditions 7 at a time. Again, 7 at a time was really taboo in California. They were just like, are you kidding me? What? But you can either be upset because there's 7, or you can calm yourself down and say, there's 7 people in the room. In order for me to move forward, I can either be intimidated or intimidating. I chose
I love that.
intimidating.
Right.
I'm going to be intimidating. Now, to make life even better, there was a woman there who absolutely hated my guts. And every time she was in an audition, because she believed every time we competed, I got the job. So she just hated me. And there she was. Okay. You know, you've got that rival in high school.
Right.
Unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't change. Even when you're an adult, there's always someone out there that's kind of like. So here we are, 7 in a room. They have us all stand up. And the person in front of us is Brian Henson. So not Jim. And Brian says, well, you know, my father was supposed to be here, but I'm going to get us started because we can't delay anymore. So we're going to have you all stand up. We're going to have you put your puppets over your heads and you're going to count. Now, if you've ever done lip sync, you understand that counting, there's a multitude of ways to count. But the thing that's going to get you to go down the chute is if you go 7 instead of 7. So they're watching for 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is the one that's either going to have you be kept or out. Mm-hmm. The other ones are 101. They don't want you to enunciate everything 101 because you're flapping in the breeze. 101 is what they want. 101. 101. You see? So these were things that they knew.
I said that's a fine line between.
It is a fine line. Yeah. But if you know your stuff, it's things that they knew that we should probably know. We were going to be pros. He was looking for pros. So you just go in. And I had worked with Tony and several other people and that course and just knew and felt very comfortable with what I was doing and didn't worry about it at all. Just went right into it. So they had us count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, Tony Urbano also says you only have 30 seconds to make it or break it. So as Brian had us all together count 1, I did. Everyone went 1, and I went 1, and everyone went 2, and I went 2, and everyone went 3, and I went 3, and Brian said, stop. And he walked right up to me and he looked me right in the face and he said, let's all count together, shall we? And I was, yes, sir. But I knew now, who's he going to be watching out of all those 7? Because the question in Brian's head is, did she make a mistake or is she punking me? And I was punking him.
Did you come up with that on the spot, or was that something that you were planning when you were in the corner with your paper? Okay,
Tony Urbano, and I think this was Tony, and my mentor Pat Breimer, who has just passed. Both of them said, you know, you open yourself to these little gifts. Don't close the door. Just go for it. And I thought, 30 seconds. I need 30 seconds of Brian's undivided attention, and there's 7 people. How do I make me? Without being, it probably was annoying actually, but so he said together, so we all counted together. So there I was counting with my puppet, 1, 2, 3, 4 with everybody else, 5, 6. But when we got to 7, I looked at Brian and went like this: 7, 8, 9, 10.
I love that. Oh my gosh.
That is what you call sealing the deal.
Yeah.
Because he just didn't know. He really, he really didn't know what to think about me, but I had loved the Muppets, and I knew the Muppets were people that were pranksters and playful. So I just decided to play playful. And so Brian sat us all down, and then he said, Terri, because now he knew what I was doing. So he says, all right, now this became the audition of a little bit of a battle. All right, you're going first, So, okay. I jumped up, and he told me that I had to do 60 seconds of ad lib with my character. So I love Star Wars. I've seen it a bazillion times, 181 times. I'm in a Skywalking book for my viewings of it. And that's when there was no VHS, no DVDs, no internet. It was all at the movie theater. But anyway, so I talked about Star Wars because I was all about Star Wars. So my character just riffed and riffed and riffed about Star Wars. And then I sat down. They said, very good. I sat down, and in walked Jim Henson. So my friend who doesn't like me, she went like that. She was so happy that that everyone else was going to go up in front of Jim, and I didn't get to go up in Jim because I was done. So I was like, rats, But I sat down very quietly. So after the 7 people were done, Brian said, thank you very much. We'll be in touch. If you got the job, we'll call you. If you didn't, of course, we won't call you. And Jim went, oh, no. Terri, you don't think you're getting off that easy, do you? And I was like, huh? And he said, get up. And I went, okay. Get over here. Front and center. Okay. Now 60 seconds of riff other than what you did for my son. And go. And I just went. I don't even remember what I did, but I just snapped right into it and did it again. And everybody else was jealous because now I'm on tape twice.
Right.
So needless to say, I did get the job, but I mean, it's crazy. And Jim and I were working on a show together that I'm thinking of possibly resurrecting, because we were in the kind of the egg stage, if you will. And someone said the other day, well, gosh, you could develop it into something. And now with the internet, it's so simple to do that.
There's so many resources out there.